Minion in. Last night, Bless Unleashed announced changes that were coming today. It wasn't a big list, but I want to talk about them.
Come for the game, stay for the commentary.
Ain't nothing but a seat then, baby.
First of all, if you haven't noticed, the big September update we were expecting apparently isn't happening. The set of goals was quietly dismantled. Some of the things, like controller remapping, have already been added weeks ago, like quietly in the shadows. It was weird. I did a video about that. You can click on this card if you want. And some things, like access to the Ivory Dunes, or as the website names them for some reason, White Sands, are coming later. A big October update has been announced, but they also said that the update will be mostly quality of life changes. So what we're expecting from that is optimizations and tweaks to interface and controls, but not much in the way of new content. This is just a prediction, so let's keep an eye on announcements over the next 3 weeks. I'll do my best to keep you informed as well. I predicted Soarin' Deception was going to be a disappointment too, and it was everything but. So maybe whoever writes the website is just terrible at making these announcements sound like a good idea at the time. Let's use that to segue into last night's announcement, because speaking of writing the website, we know it was a mistake and it can happen, but it just looks sloppy to announce that channel numbers will be reduced from 2 to 4, for multiple reasons. 1, because math, and 2, because we pretty much all agree that it is a terrible decision. It also makes it look like whoever's doing these announcements is doing them as an afterthought. They're not checking their work, and they're not really bothered about getting the information to us, and that makes us feel underappreciated. It does do very little to encourage faith in the player base. Fizera is the only server with 4 channels to begin with, so now it's not even clear if Teleos and Luminous will also be having their channels reduced. The announcement kinda just makes it look like devs don't know what they're doing. So here's how we think less channels is actually going to affect our game in practice. The Rift invasion is going to take longer to trigger, because 6 Cyclopses will now have less places to spawn. Ancient chests, smugglers, and rare spawns will be dominated by big guilds. Having these emptier channels tagged onto the back made it easy for the little guy to have a shot at getting something good every now and then. Especially right after that freaking hero, Queen of Taming, made all those rare spawn locations public, people are piling into those locations on all 4 channels and PKing each other and killing the rare spawns to keep other people from getting them. Those 2 channels are going to be a bloodbath, with such a high level of frustration that it might put some people off of playing completely. Regionals are easy to do during slow hours of the day, but during prime time in the evenings and especially on weekends, you already have to compete with 5 or more players on every channel for kills and nodes to all those channels, and for some reason, people just won't accept party invites to make those regionals easier for everyone. So either we're going to have to start accepting party invites, or I'm just going to stop doing those regionals altogether. You're now cramming those 20 people into 2 channels, doubling the competition. And I really just don't want to go to any of those regionals at the Navarra Harpy Queen anymore. And don't get me started on that totem gathering quest in the Null Wastes. Oh my god. The lowlifes ambushing Lobies to PK in Tristeza will have easier targets, because their victims can now be found on 2 channels. And when they change channels to get away, you know exactly where they're going. Tristeza is going to become even more unpleasant. Also, a very common practice that has been keeping us busy between invasions is doing field boss runs. For gear to sell for gold, so we don't have to buy large gold jars on the market anymore, and also for cores that we need for upgrading. Less channels means less field boss spawns. In the end, what this means for all of us is more time standing around waiting for things to do. And remember that video I did, I think it was called We Need Some Fixes, where I said this is your player base, just a bunch of assholes standing around waiting to play the game? I was really hoping to get that refuted, not confirmed. Most importantly, it is how this decision affects public perception of the game. If you play often, then you know those claims that the game is dead or dying are bogus. It's just toxic haters spewing their garbage. But you can't say you're not a little worried when you see that the devs think the population is so low that channels are being reduced by half. It makes the devs look worried, and that public show of doubt is disconcerting for all of us. Now, there's no way of knowing this for sure, but here's what I suspect. The PS4 beta just ended, and it had some server issues for which certain features like Guild XP had to be disabled to keep things running. At the same time, NeoWiz is working on Bless Unleashed PC, and I'm happy for PC people getting to play this great game too, but I have suspicions that the Xbox servers are being reduced to give more space to other platforms. And as the first and longest standing player base for Bless Unleashed, I have to admit, we on Xbox feel a little shafted. We've been here this long, and a little appreciation for our loyalty would be nice. But by taking channels away from us, we feel like the opposite of that is happening. In all honesty, I don't know the reasoning behind this decision. All I can say is how it affects us as players and our perception of how the devs are handling things. It looks like the devs don't play their own game, which makes them, in our eyes, less qualified to make decisions about things that will directly affect gameplay and player interactivity. Now, to be fair, devs don't typically play their own games. I've played maybe half of the games I've made. Being a game dev is a very stressful and incredibly time-consuming job, which gives very little thanks. You're being paid to work on the game. Nobody writing you a paycheck wants you to play the game during work hours, and when you get off work, you don't want to think about work anymore. So it's perfectly normal and understandable that devs aren't stopping their workday to go play Bless Unleashed. That's why we have quality assurance people whose job it is to play the game and then provide the devs with important feedback. So in actuality, what this message is really making us feel is that devs aren't listening to feedback or bothering to check before making decisions that greatly affect their players. Honestly, eventually we'll just get used to 2 channels and things will balance out and it'll be fine and we'll forget all about this. But this is a blow to our collective faith in the staying power of this game. I've been talking to other players all night on Discord, Reddit, and during live stream, and people think this is a sign that devs are admitting that the game is struggling. What we need now is a show of faith, and I hope we get it. Until then, go be freaking heroes. Minion out.